Your images are broken on something. Okay. That's a Twitter. Hey, everybody. We're getting started here in a couple minutes. Let's go to the main scene, and we're going to be talking about Blazor. Let's bring up the Blazor workshop here. So if you want to follow along, today's task is to get through as many of the labs basically on this workshop as we can. Which you'll find at github.com, .NET Presentations, Blazor Workshop, or just Google Blazor Workshop. It looks like this. It's this pizza app. And we're going to start right with session 0 in just a minute. Let's see. So I've got Steve Kramer with me. Kramer, what's your URL or Twitter?
My Twitch is the Freeze Team, but my Twitter is Stephen T. Kramer.
There we go. We'll throw that on there. So this is Kramer. We tried video last week, and I had issues with it. Skype was grabbing my camera, so this week we're just going to do voice, and I'll probably set up live share so he can work with me. He's got a nice tool if you're doing anything with Blazor called Blazor State. Do you want to talk about Blazor State for just a minute?
Sure. It's we're not going to cover it in this workshop, but it's a state management application or library that's similar to what you would have done if you're coming from the JavaScript world, what you would use like Redux for. Global state management, but I've built it using mediator pipelines instead. So it's not real complicated to use. Ed Charbonneau and I did a whole episode on using it. And there will be a new version coming out probably Monday once I get the preview 6 bits updated.
Nice. Let's see, I can close that and close that. I'm trying to find my chat so I can keep up with people. There it is. I'm actually remoting into another machine because this machine's set up as my streaming machine and the other machine's got more horsepower and won't hurt this one streaming. The other thing that I solved from last week was that my sounds for everything else were getting cut out by my Skype, so I figured that out, and I'll throw that in the chat just for posterity, but that was the issue. And I need a way to keep my chat on top of everything else, because every time I do anything it gets hidden, and I want to keep it there. There should be an option on chatty. View, always on top, look at that, sweet. We're doing that. Alright, perfect. Okay, so far it's me and Kramer, who's not even in the chat, and James, SMH Dev. Welcome. So, let's go, I think we're good to go now. We've got sounds working. Let's test a sound and see if we hear this. I've got a bad feeling. There we go. I heard it. Hopefully it went on the stream. Alright, Kramer, so you're not able to see my screen at the moment, are you?
No. Well, I will be once I get through the commercial. So you're...
Oh, yeah. Okay, stupid Twitch commercials having to pay their bills.
Yeah, people wanting to actually eat and live indoors. How absurd.
Alright. That's enough of all that. Let's get started on this. So we're going to jump to session 0 on GitHub. Session 0 is going to say... we're going to get our machine set up for Blazor development, build your first app, get started, follow these instructions, and it takes us somewhere else. Once you have your first app running, try and build it, and then we'll go to components. So let's go to Blazor getting started. In here, it's going to say, hey, install the .NET Core Preview SDK, which I think I've done. Let's verify that. So, is that the right? Hopefully that's the right machine. So if we do .NET -- version, we are on preview 6. Excellent. And let's actually go to where we're going to be working. Perfect. Alright, I'm pretty sure if I do a git branch, it's gonna show me. It's so hard to read. Huh. I thought they were doing it with branches, but maybe not. Alright, well, we'll figure out that in a minute. So install the .NET Core, we've done that. Install the Blazor templates, I think I've done that too, but let's go ahead and just copy their command and run it. Getting ready. Restore complete. Guess it worked. There's a bunch of Blazor stuff there, so it looks good. Alright, now install the latest Visual Studio preview. Here's my Visual Studio. It's the preview build. If we go to About, it says version 16.2 preview 2.0. Is that what you're on, Kramer?
Whatever the latest one. Yeah, I believe so. Let me pull it up real quick. Help about. Yep, 16.2.0 preview 2.
Awesome. Alright. I see Smab UK is saying he's gotten as far as step 1 previously. Yeah, I've done it through a few steps as well. I just wanted to start from scratch here just so we can show people that are new to Blazor the whole thing. Alright, now install the Blazor extension from the Visual Studio Marketplace. I don't remember if I did that. So we're going to go to Extensions, Manage. Let's search for Blazor. No items found. Let's search online for Blazor. Clear out my search box. Thank you. Let's download the Blazor extension. Alright. Now we gotta close Visual Studio to finish installing it. And we'll say yes. And it installs. And what's going to be after this is create a new project and choose the Blazor template and run it. So that's
You can do that from the .NET Core CLI also there on the third tab.
Sure. We could do that. Let's jump to a Scratch folder. Does that? It'll create a new folder, won't it? Yeah. Alright, so let's do .NET New, Blazor-O, Blazor App 1, CD into Blazor App 1, and run it while Visual Studio is doing its thing.
This is just a test that everything works, I believe, because I think you're going to use the hosted template for the workshop.
Right. This is just verifying Blazor works locally.
Yeah.
So go to that localhost 5000, and look at that. We can do stuff with counters. We can fetch data. We can verify whether this is running with WebAssembly, which it is, and it's pulling down all the DLLs here. So cool. So with that, we have Blazor working. Now let's go back to the Visual Studio steps. Let's make sure it's doing its thing. It's all done installing the extension. So create a new project and basically try out the same thing, but now in Visual Studio. Create new ASP.NET Core app. Next, Blazor test app. It's good. Create, and there we go. And it wanted us to do a client-side one, I think, just to follow these instructions. There we go, Blazor client-side, and then run it. So again, this will be the exact same thing we just did. But now we can do Control F5 and run it all in Visual Studio, and we could do live share if I wanted to, which I could have done from VS Code also, but so far I haven't opened VS Code. Alright, 2 for 2. Great, so the test templates just work. Yay, as we would hope. Alright, so that's all good. So now I can back out of this, and we're done with step 0. Now we want to go to Components and Layout. And in this session, you'll get started building your pizza app. Alright. Pizza Store starting point is in the Save Points folder, along with the end state for each thing. So we want to go to the starting point here. And so I'm going to open that. There's a solution there. So let's do a new open project. Go to my GitHub repo. Blazor Workshop, save points, components here, and open that. Alright, so this is already got a bunch of stuff in it for us. Let's see what the instructions are telling us. Okay, the solution already contains 4 projects. There's the client, which contains the UI components for the app. There's the server with the ASP.NET Core project that hosts it. And there's some shared models. And then there's a component library that we're going to be using in later sessions. Make sure the server is the startup project, and when you run it, you'll see it contains a very simple home page. So let's try that. Server is the startup project. Any chance we can have a larger font size? Of course, of course. Let's see. I can crank up the. Oh, that looks a lot nicer than theirs. Did I somehow go to the end state by chance? That does not look like a simple thing. All right, let's.
No, yeah, I think you did. When you
Maybe I need to go to 0 instead of 1 to start on 1. Maybe that's the deal. All right, that is a small font size. Sorry about that. Smab UK, how's this font size now? Let's look at something just so we can see what this looks like. How about startup? Is that better? Is that readable? It looks readable to me. Kramer, you're on the stream. Can you see it?
Yeah, it looks fine.
All right,
on
good.
the stream. Yeah, your Visual Studio font is a little bit small if they're trying to read your file names, but
yeah, I'm not sure I can do much about that except stream at a lower resolution, I suppose. So what else I could do? Can I make that bigger? I can make that bigger, I think. Let's try this. No, I can't because it'll get in the way of the chat. All right. Sorry.
yeah, it's fine.
It's good as I can do. All right. Okay, so maybe this is the wrong start point to use. Let's try the previous one. So, save points. I guess we'll start at the starting point here. Is that what they told me to do?
They told you to start at starting point 0 there.
Okay, then I did the wrong thing.
I think you clicked on 1, yeah.
You're right. Yep. Well, because I'm on step 2, I thought, or the second thing, right? But okay, now we're at the right place. And now let's run it, and this should be less pretty.
Yeah.
There we go. So that's what we expect. Okay. Alright, so we're up to here. So now open Pages, Index Razor, and check out the code for the home page. In here, which project does it want me to do that in? First, we'll update
Probably
the home page.
the
It's got to be the
client.
server.
The client. If you just talk about at functions, which by the way are now at code, so I guess I could file a PR for that.
There you go. We can do some pull requests as we go. All right, so yeah, so this could stand to have a pull request in it as well, which I could do real quick. So if you have something you want to change on a site like this, you should be able to just hop up here and edit it. And what I want to do is specify which project this thing is in. So it says open this in the, and what is it called? blazingpizza.client project. So we'll tell them to do that in the blazingpizza.client project to see the thing. So let's do double star because that's what they're doing with their project names, like that. And so that'll clarify that a little bit. Clarify file location, propose file change. And that's all you have to do to create a quick PR for some markdown file. Well, that and click create PR, and then that's all you have to do. So now at some point Dan Roth or somebody might decide they like that change and take it in. But now we have to go back to where we were, which was, we were here, and then we were here, and now we're here, and there. Alright. I probably should open up a separate tab to do that change. Right. Okay. So now we want to add a functions block, and you're telling me that does function still work, or is it just at code now that works?
I believe function still works, but the new version would be at code.
Alright, so there's going to be a new version. Now, I think it supports it in Preview 6 is at code.
Preview 6, yep.
So let's try it with this at functions block that they're saying that they want us to do. and the code and the function is added to the generated class of the component. The pizza special type is already defined for you in the shared project, which is why it's this nice pretty blue color. And our shared project is down here, and a pizza special looks like this, and it has an ID, name, price description, image, and formatted price. Alright, sounds good. So we declared a list. That's not really doing much for us yet. To get the available list of specials, we need to call an API in the back end. There is a pre-configured HTTP client that we can dependency inject into this by just adding @inject HTTP client. I don't really like the name they're using for that, but all right, we'll go with it.
Okay, I want you to give me a quick help here, because there was a guy asking the question about the HTTP client and null reference pointers.
Okay.
So if you enable the null reference pointers on this, he's getting an error. So this behind the scene creates property, right? Can we set defaults on this injection parameter? So try to say equals
Like that?
on that.
I don't think you can do that. That's not how @inject works.
I don't think you can either.
Give me a red
Not-
squiggle.
Yeah, I gave you a red squiggle. So you can do it on a property, on a code behind property. You can,
Sure.
but not with that inject. It looks like.
No, this inject directive is very limited in what it can support syntax-wise. It's not actually like a line of C# code. Alright, so we're going to inject, essentially defines a new property in the component where the first token specified the property type, and the second is the property name. And the thing I don't like is that we're using the same string for the type and the name. Like, I'd probably call this client, or I don't know, something else. But it's fine. The property is populated for you. Alright.
I would call it HTTP client.
See, that's the type. Like, it's confusing if the type and the property name are both literally identical. Like, if it were a local,
that's my rule of thumb.
I'd call it underscore HTTP client, and then it would be like more obvious. But I don't know. It's what they're using. It's fine. I'll get over it. All right. So now we're going to override on an async. We're going to use that client. We're going to call and get the specials from the specials endpoint. So we're just going to copy paste some more code over here, and we'll put this in here, and now it will populate our local specials from an HTTP client call.
And notice they're using local state for this, so they're just building it right into the object.
This, you mean, is the local state?
Yeah, the local pizzas, that list up there is the local state.
Right. Alright, so the specials API is defined by the specials controller in the server project. Once the component is initialized, it will render its markup. Replace the markup in the index component with the following to list the pizza specials. More copy pasting. Let's look at what this does. So we'll just keep the H1, I guess, and drop this in under it. And alright, so we're going to say if specials is not null, so we got some specials, we're going to loop over them. And for each one, we'll have an image and a title, name, and a description, and the price. Alright, sounds good. Can we run it yet? Yes, we can. So Control F5 should let us run it. Cross fingers.
It should look like that.
And it looks like that. So I guess they probably didn't want me to keep this, did they? I don't know.
I don't know.
Like theirs doesn't have the H1. They said replace all the markup in the index component. So
Okay.
So yeah, it looks better without the H1, I think. So we'll figure out how to do a layout page or something later. Alright, so with that, I don't even have to rebuild. I should be able to just refresh. Nope.
Nope.
Not the same for Blazor. If it were on the server, I wouldn't need to rebuild. But now
it's coming, but
it needs to redeploy.
It's coming. That's definitely high on the list, but not there yet.
Alright, so boom, there we go. And we have the nice little CSS applied to it to make it move when I mouse over it. Alright. Where are we at? I think we're close to done with this step.
Yep.
Create the layout. Alright, so now layouts are components. They inherit from layout component base. Defines a body property that can be used to specify where the body should be rendered. Layout component for our pizza store app is already in shared main layout razor, And it looks like this. Alright, so let's just verify that. Over in our client, there should be a shared folder with a main layout razor, and it should look pretty much like that. Alright, good. To apply a layout, use the layout directive. Typically this is done in imports, which is inherited everywhere. So see pages, imports, razor, layout, main layout. So imports, layout, main layout is already there. Looks just like that. Alright, good. Update the main layout component to define a top bar. So we're going to take this. It's going to add this new top bar nav to the top of the thing. And so let's go back here to my main layout and put this here. And I copy the whole thing, so don't need that. Alright. Done. The nav link component is provided by Blazor. Let's look at that for a minute. Alright, so we have this component called nav link. It has an href, a class, and a match. Navlink match.all. What does that do? Do you know, Kramer?
Yeah, it just shows a different CSS styling when that's the route that you're on. So whatever's in the match, but what the .all is doing, I'm not exactly sure.
.all or prefix? Interesting.
Oh, no, yeah, okay, so that's the entire URL. Okay. So it's going to change the CSS if it matches the entire URL versus the prefix is like you can specify if it starts with API or whatever. Well, obviously it wouldn't start with API, but if it starts with something, then you could say, highlight that link.
Okay. Hey, Ed, thanks for hopping in. Go get your work done, and then we'll send people to your stream tomorrow. Alright, so navlink component is the same as an anchor tag. It adds an active class if the current URL matches, just like Kramer said. And navlink match all means the link should be active only when it matches the entire current URL, not just a prefix. Alright, cool.
I guess I could have just read that, couldn't we?
I know. Instead I had to put you on the spot, but you were great. You nailed it. Alright, next up, customize a pizza. This is going to be O2. This is O2. Alright, so SMAB UK, you got through step 1. Now we're up to interesting stuff for you. We're going to customize this. We'll update the pizza store to enable users to customize their pizzas and add them to their order. So when the user clicks a pizza special, a dialog should pop up to allow them to customize their pizza and add it to their order. To handle DOM UI events in a Blazor app, you specify which event you want to handle using the corresponding HTTP attribute. So we're going to have an onClick event here, and we're going to write a lambda. Some interesting code there. We'll look at that in a minute. The delegate may optionally take an event-specific argument, but it is not required. So on index razor, add the following onClick handler to the list item for each pizza. So li is our list item. I think I only need that bit of code, that line. And we can come back to index.razor, find our list item here, and paste this in. And we're saying on click, we're going to console write line the name of the special. Alright, so then that's just going to let us see in the console, which will be in the browser console.
Right.
Now Dan Roth had shown in his build session some extension you could add to Chrome that would add WebAssembly or Blazor debug tools here. I don't see those mentioned here, but maybe we'll get to those. Have you used those, Kramer?
Do you know let's just say they're not. Let's just
would not recommend
WebEx. Yeah, for the client-side debugging, what we typically do is I write my code so that it works on client or server, and I switch to server side, and I get full Visual Studio debugging.
Okay.
Yeah, they just say console.writeLine ends up being what you use to debug still. But
for now.
For now, yeah, that's going to be coming. I mean, everybody knows. They've got some rudimentary one where you hit Control-Shift-D, but honestly, nobody's using it.
Alright, so if I click on these, we see the console write happening.
Yeah, that's your debugging right there.
Alright, cool. That works. The @ symbol used in the Razor files to indicate the start of C# code. Surround C# code with parens if needed to clarify where it begins and ends. Usually Razor's pretty good about figuring that out, but in code that looks like this, it might be a little more difficult for it to know. So that's why they've got extra parens around this to say that that whole thing is C# code.
Not only that, but the new feature in Preview 6 is that @ in front of the onClick. Now tells you that that's a C# event handler and not a regular JavaScript one.
Okay. So maybe it can infer better that it doesn't even need this @? Or does it still?
It requires that @ on the left. I don't think that it would need that @ on the right anymore, but...
Okay. I wonder if that's true in Preview 6 now? If we get rid of...
That one on the... Yeah.
We try that. Let's see if it still works.
Yeah, you could try it. Give it a whirl.
This is still preview bits, so everything's still kind of in flux. Alright, so let's do that. We broke it. So, okay, so it still needs 2 ats, apparently.
Still needs the @ on the other side, too. Okay.
You're getting a call.
Yeah. That's spam time in the US, so...
Alright. And Smab UK was telling us in chat that it was going to require it. But now we've proven it to ourselves. So, good. Alright. Let's go moving right along. Update the functions block to add some additional fields for tracking the pizza being customized. We want to know which pizza are we working with and whether or not we're showing the configured dialog. So that can just go down here in our functions block. And you're saying that I can call that code now, right? Should we try that?
They recommend that code now.
Are you going to pull request that into the workshop?
Not right now.
Not right now.
I'm enjoying myself tonight. I'm not going to torture myself like we did last week.
Alright, so that still works when we switched to the code, so that's cool. Okay, so now add a show configure pizza dialog method that will do what? Configuring pizza, create a new pizza, and then say we're going to show the dialog. But it doesn't actually do it yet.
It's not attached to the button yet. That's next.
Okay, so here we go. Let's tab that in. Show configure pizza dialog with the pizza special, which was whichever one they picked. Special equals special. Special ID is the ID. Pizza is the size of the pizza, and get a list of toppings. Alright. I wonder why they're doing that there. Like, this is just a nitpick, but if pizza should always have a list of toppings and never have that be null, they should totally just put it right here, right? It should always just be right there and be done with it. And then you never have to do what they just did. So that's what I would do, but that's not in the instructions. So we'll skip it and keep it just like this. And they like trailing commas apparently, so they can keep on adding items, which is fine. Okay. Now update the onClick handler to call the show configure pizza dialog and pass in the special. So I'll just take this whole line, and instead of console writing, now we will actually do something in our code. So do that. Alright. Are we ready to test it yet? Well, no, we've got to implement the customization dialog so we can display it. So I didn't have a VS Preview installed, but got it up and running easily enough. Cool, Joe. Thanks for joining. Alright, so we're going to add a new configure pizza dialog Blazor file under the shared directory. It's not a separate page, so it doesn't need an @page directive. And then
@page would make it give it a route.
Right, would make it a Blazor page. So under shared, we're going to add a new Blazor item. So it's a Blazor view, maybe? I don't know. What did it want us to call it? That configure.Blazor.
Is that what they told you to do?
They didn't say. They just said to add a file. They didn't say what kind of file.
Yeah, I use Mads Christians or Mads. Everybody knows who Mads is.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce his last name. He's got a Shift F2. You just add a file and put your extension on it, and that's the way I do it. So I don't ever use that new item thing anymore.
Yeah, I don't really like the new item. I used to use ReSharper, and it had a really nice add item thing that was super fast. But I haven't used ReSharper in a couple years, so whatever this thing gives me as a template, I'm just going to blow away. So
Exactly. So it just has to be a .razor file.
Right. I mean, there's nothing here anyway. So there we go. You got an empty file. And it's got the right name. It's in the right place. Good. Note, currently there's no option for adding a new file with a Razor extension. Yep, I've seen that before. So manually change it to a .razor. It's fine.
That's what we just figured out, right?
Yeah, partially. Right, use a Razor view. That's what I did. Okay. Should have a pizza parameter that specifies the pizza component parameters are defined by adding a writable property and decorating it with parameter. So we're going to create a functions block, which we're going to call code in a second, and give it a parameter pizza. It's like Little Caesars.
Yeah, I know a little bit about that.
I know you do. All right. Component parameter values should only ever be set by the runtime, so they should not be public. Okay. This lets the runtime
Maybe we could
keep
rewrite
track
the whole ordering site. What do you think?
for pizza.
For Little Caesars.
For Little Caesars.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll call the boss and say, hey, we did it in Blazor. You want this?
There you go. I heard their current ordering site is so awesome that it never needs rewritten, though.
It's not too bad, I have to say. It's not too bad. They're adding me more features, though. I left it in good hands. Andrew's a good, quite capable developer.
All right, so we're going to add some markup for this dialog, and we'll talk about what that looks like. Do you care whether code is at the top or the bottom of the markup? Like, would you put the markup at the top, do you think?
Yeah, I would put the markup at the top.
Okay.
I put the markup at the top.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But actually, what you can do is you can also put the code behind in a separate class.
Right.
Partials are not supported yet. They will be in Preview 7 or RC1, is what they're going to call it.
But I could
so
do
that
.razor.cs, and it would work eventually?
Correct. Well, you can do it right now, but you have to inherit. You have to do an inherit from.
Okay, instead of a partial.
Instead of a partial, but in Preview 7, partials will be supported. So right now, all of my templates have the inherited version because, well, the Razor's getting better for IntelliSense and so forth, your code, but there'll be some limitations still that you're going to be like, it should be telling me what to do, and it won't tell you correctly, whereas if it was a C# file, it would tell you better. So
yeah. So yeah, I'm with some other folks on chat and you about having this code being a code behind. Not a web forms code behind, but a separate file where the code lives. All right, so let's look at this HTML. It's basically some Bootstrap-like use of divs. We've got a container and a dialog and a title, and there's the name of the pizza with its description. And we've got a form with a cancel button and a show me the price and an order button.
yeah, they do use some Bootstrap, but then they destroy it with a whole bunch of custom CSS, which I don't know why they did that, but.
Well, because they want it to look like this awesome UK-based blazing pizza shop.
Yeah, but I don't know. They could do a lot of that with Bootstrap, and they just decided to custom do some. So.
Hey, Lewins888, thanks for the follow. All right, so we're going to put this code block somewhere, and we don't really care where, apparently, on index.razor, and it's going to magically say when it renders the page that if we're showing it, to go ahead and show it, to just drop this markup on the page. And it doesn't really matter where because it overlays, so it can live wherever we want. I think I'll put it right here. All right. So with that, now it's going to say, hey, let's test this thing. So Control F5. It's getting slower. There we go. Look at that. There's our configured dialog. It matches. Buffalo chicken is our special. Buffalo chicken is here. Our buttons don't yet do anything. There's probably no way to get rid of it.
But the dialog shows up.
But the dialog showed up. Yeah, we'll implement the cancel button in a second.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a win. Could you do me a favor and share your screen through Skype?
Maybe. Let's see.
That way I can avoid the lag.
Yeah, the lag. Let me see. There's no plus icon, is there? Share screen. There we go. Share screen. There, can you see it?
Not yet.
Wait for it.
And now I can. Okay, cool.
Hooray. Alright. So, run that. We're here. Unfortunately, there's no way to close the dialog. We'll add that shortly. Alright. Let's do some more data binding stuff. So the user should be able to specify the size of their pizza and add markup to the pizza. Why should you get to avoid the lag that we all have? Well, you can all call me on Skype. I don't really need Twitch for the 12 people that are joined here. I think Skype could handle that. I'll just do a Zoom meeting and it'll work fine. There can't be that much lag. How much was it? Like a couple seconds?
Couple seconds.
Yeah, but it's enough to be annoying, I know. But see, they're not hearing me through Skype. They're only hearing me on Twitch, so they don't notice the lag.
Yeah, they don't know that it's a couple seconds.
That's right.
For me, it's like you're saying stuff. I'm like, no.
You're like, that's not what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. What's really annoying is when I have Twitch running and I can hear myself and like say something, and then 2 seconds later I hear myself saying it. Like, oh, that's unnerving.
I do that at the beginning of every Twitch session now, though, to make sure that the audio is coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, I should totally do that. I mostly just ask people.
But you don't do it at 1 o'clock in the morning U.S. time.
Yeah. So I actually have people to ask.
Yeah, people ask. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to add this dialog. We're going to replace form class dialog body that they apparently added there just so we could replace it with this beautiful code that's going to create this slider for us. Right? Yeah, there's a span with the slider. Cool. So let's go back to our code. Let's go back to our dialog. Let's find that dialog body right there and replace it with this new code here. It's got a pound symbol in it because this is British. And min max, that's our input range. Cool. All right. Then what?
Yeah, HTML validation's not half bad, really.
So let's run it again. It looks like is what they want me to do next. And we should have a dialog that we can play with but can't close. It doesn't actually adjust that. That's coming. All right. Let's shut down a few of these extra tabs. And continue. We want to make it so the value of pizza size will reflect the value on the slider. So when the dialog opens, the slider gets its value from pizza.size. Moving this slider should adjust pizza.size, right? We just want basic two-way data binding. This concept is called two-way binding. Hey, yeah. All right. If you want to implement two-way binding manually, you can do so by combining value and on-change as in the following code, which you don't actually need because there's an easier way. Good. So we could do this and say when this thing changes, set size to be whatever this thing's new value is. All right. But in Blazor, because it's cool, you can use the @bind directive to do that with less code. The equivalent markup looks like this. So we're going to steal this code and we're going to put it in this input. Yeah. All right.
By the way, Steve, have you noticed the productivity difference from let's wing it and try to create an analyzer versus having a script to follow?
Yeah. No, this is a little nicer than last week's stream of shame.
Yeah.
All right, so let's run this again.
Now the prices should adjust.
And boom, look at that. Different sizes,
Yay.
different prices. Cool.
17 pounds for 18 pounds for a 17-inch.
Or pizza,
Yeah.
that's a TV.
This is why you go to those Caesars.
You get 2 pizzas for that price.
You get 4. What are you talking about? $5 for a large pizza.
Are they still that
Pretty
cheap?
good deal. Yep. Little Caesars tries very hard to maintain that price point. They've been able to keep it at $5. The $5 for the basic cheese pizza, baked pizza, for years. So.
Yeah, my cousin was a manager at a Little Caesars not too far from here in Ohio for a few years while she was in college. Alright, so we prefer to see the updates as the slider is moved. Okay. Wasn't it doing that already? No.
That's what we just did.
No, not quite. Only when we let go. Bam, I let go. But as I slide it, it doesn't do anything until I let go. So that's what it's talking about. Alright, so...
Okay.
Okay, so data binding in Blazor allows you for this by specifying what event triggers the change. So we want to bind using onInput instead. So that's going to be bind value event onInput we need to add.
And they've standardized that syntax now for all of those to be in that same in that same format with the at, the and then the colon followed by the equals.
Okay.
All of they had like 4 or 5 different places that had a slightly different syntax, but now in Preview 6 they're all the same.
And we'll turn on word wrap so we can see the whole line because it's getting long. But now if we run it theoretically with this new data binding, it should change just as I move my mouse around. So let's see, the Brit. Here we go. So I don't have to let go for it to bind. Still can't cancel though. We'll get to that. Alright, so now back to tab 1. They have a fancy little animated GIF here showing you all that. I'm going to add additional toppings. You should be able to select additional toppings in the configure pizza dialog, add a list property for storing available toppings, initialize the list by making a GET request. Alright. So in the dialog, we need to add all this stuff. So we need to inject an HTTP client. So we don't have one of those yet. So this has to be at the start of the file, so up here. And then down in our code block, we're going to add a list of toppings and a pizza.
You know, it probably doesn't have to be at the start of the file, but that's been the standard way we've all been doing it.
Code directives, I think in Razor files, need to be before anything else. So anything starting with an at like this at the top, I think it only works at the top. We can verify that in a minute when we get this thing working, though. Alright, so the pizza I've already got, so I don't need that. We add the toppings. Then we want to load the toppings with on init async here. And set it to a GET request for toppings. Alright. Add the following markup in the dialog box for displaying a drop-down list with the list of available toppings, followed by the set of selected ones. Put inside the dialog body the form below the existing div. Alright. There's all that. Here's my form, there's my existing div. That looks like the right spot. Copy paste coding for the win.
Format it.
It's formatted. It's indented just inside the form.
Is it? Okay.
Alright, so if toppings is, let's read through it, right? So here's our label. If we don't have any toppings, we're going to say loading. If our toppings is more than 5, or if it's 6 or greater, we're going to say that's enough. Otherwise, we're going to display a select list. On change, we'll trigger topping selected. And we'll for each over our list of toppings that we fetched from the web, and then we'll display our toppings. Topping selected, we haven't done that yet. So as soon as we do topping selected, I suspect it's going to add the topping to the pizza's list of toppings, and allow us to delete them as well with remove topping. So we don't have those
Which
yet.
we haven't implemented yet.
Which in our case we have not got. Alright, so apologies, I missed the beginning and the title of the project is wrong. Who is the disembodied voice? The disembodied voice is Stephen T. Kramer. This guy.
Disembodied voice.
And Meher Jen, thanks for following. What other questions we got? Or wait, maybe does it? I mean, nice if the number changes as you slide. Oh, yeah. That's right, Joe. We got that working. Alright. We need to add these functions. One of them says add the topping. One of them, then that's for topping selected. Then add topping will verify whether or not the topping is already there, and if it's not, it will add it to the pizza. And then remove topping will just remove all instances of that topping from the pizza. So grab these things here, copy paste them into our component. That we need to format. And Control KD formats everything for me. Save that. Are we ready to run it yet? You should be able to add remove toppings. We still can't close the dialog, but you know, priorities.
One step at a time. Ship it.
Ship it.
It's 11:44 p.m.
Did you just ask Alexa what time it is?
I said one step at a time, and she told me what time it is.
Oh wow. Mine just did too. Alright, so that works. Select, select, select. It should go up to... Do I keep picking the same ones? There we go. Should allow me to get up to 6. Lobster. Nice. And then I can't pick anymore. But if I get rid of one... Hey, this thing works beautifully. Duck sausage.
Not half bad.
All right. That's a nice UI for not having any JavaScript, I gotta say. All right, let's go back over here. Component events. The cancel and order buttons don't do anything yet. I know, we mentioned that. We need some way to communicate to the index. When the user adds the pizza to their order or cancels, we can do that by defining component events. These are callback parameters that the parent can subscribe to. Alright, so we're going to add 2 parameters, on cancel, on confirm, and they should be of type event callback. Cool, and these are going to be marked as parameters. I'll put them up by pizza, because pizza is also a parameter. And let's format them all the same. I guess we'll do the one-line thing. Like that. Alright. Add on-click event handlers to the configure pizza dialog trigger on cancel on confirm. Alright, so we're going to add this to the cancel button, and likewise to the confirm button. And we'll just grab the whole dialog buttons block so I don't screw it up. And that will go here. And now we have on-click handlers. It still bothers me that you have to put at in here twice. I hope they're going to fix that. That seems redundant. It's not like you would ever do an at on-click and then have a JavaScript function call here.
Because the first at says this is going to be a C#, so
right.
Yeah, the second one's kind of like not needed.
Yeah, it's like back in web forms days when they had run at equals server, and then they never had anything else. Right? There was never a run at equals client, but you still had to put run at equals server on everything.
Yeah, it's like, why bother, right?
That's what this
So you
reminds me
notice
of.
that these callbacks is what they're using here.
Right.
So because they're going to manage some state on that
They are.
parent component, right? So they need to pass back and forth that information. If you had a global state management, then these buttons themselves could just manipulate that state
On the parent
on wherever
Razor page
whatever
or wherever. Yeah.
whatever component they wanted, they would just manipulate the state themselves.
Alright, so now back inside index, we need to add an event handler for onCancel that hides the dialog and wires it up to the cancel, wires it up to the configure pizza dialog, but this says cancel configure pizza dialog. Okay, so we're going to take that, go back to index, find this, I guess, and paste it with this instead. Now it's got a cancel event handler. And there we go. Now we need to add this method here that says configuring pizza is null and stop showing the dialog.
It's not very hard to reason about, I have to admit. It's pretty nice, right? I mean, it's pretty apparent what's taking place there, and there's no bazillion nested HOCs and higher order components and so forth. React is pretty nice, but I have to say this is super clean.
Alright, so when you click the cancel, we'll fire this, we'll execute, and then the index component will render itself. Why will it render itself? We didn't tell it to render itself. Does it just automatically re-render the whole page every time an event fires?
We'll check for any state changes every time an event fires, and if the DOM's changed, then it will re-render those pieces, yeah.
Alright, so that's just how it works. Which is very
Yeah, so
similar
the
to how server-side works. So that's why it's going to work the same server-side or client-side, more or less,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it is the same, yeah, exactly the same as
Okay.
far as that's concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, so but the trick would be is what if there wasn't a user event that caused something to change? So if you got something from somewhere else, then how would they know to start looking for DOM diffs? And that's when you're going to get into something called state has changed, and I think they'll cover that later on.
Okay. Alright, now what happens when you trigger an event is that the component that defined the event handler delegate will re-render. So it's going to tell us all the things I was just wondering, if we would just read further.
Probably, yeah.
You could define events using any delegate type. Sometimes you want to use an event handler delegate that doesn't belong to a component. If you use a normal delegate type to define the event, then nothing will be rendered or updated. Event callback is special. Resolves some of these issues. It tells the compiler to dispatch the event. Event callback has a few more tricks. For now, just remember, using event callback makes your component smart about dispatching events to the right place. Alright. Run the app and verify that you can actually cancel the thing. Let's do that. Alright, Razor has a tendency to complain if you use an extra @ sign when you don't need it, like inside a loop or something. Yeah, you have to be careful with the @ signs being just right. Alright, so this is there, that still works, this still works, and whoa! We can cancel. Wow. I feel like that's anticlimactic, saving that as like the last thing on here, but okay.
We did that one first.
I know. All right. Now, when on confirm event, I guess it's not really last. We're going to actually be able to like buy our pizza here, so that'll be our big reveal here at the end. When the unconfirmed event is fired, the customized pizza should be added to the user's order. What's an order? Let's add an order field to the index component to track the user's order. Let's do that. So back to index. Here we go. Index.razor now has an order. What's that? Well, it's
I think they defined it already for us.
shared class that's already defined, and it will have an order ID, a user ID, some time, an address, location, pizzas, etc., etc. All right, and what are we doing with it? We're just newing it up. We're going to add a pizza to it in a minute. All right, now in the index component, add an event handler for onConfirm that adds the configured pizza to the order and wire it up to the configured pizza dialog. So our configured pizza dialog is now going to look like this. It's going to start to span multiple lines like that. And we're going to copy paste a confirm function. And it's going to go down here like that. And format. There we go. And it's going to say order.pizzas.add the pizza, and then set the pizza to null, and then do that. This is interesting. Like, shouldn't this set that to null? Isn't this a reference type? How come when I set this to null, it doesn't null out the one that we just added to pizzas? List of pizza add. Am I misunderstanding how this ought to work?
Configuring pizza.
This sounds like a basic C# question, but that to me that
Yes,
doesn't
it does.
quite look
So
right.
configuring pizza is a reference type. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you null out that configuring pizza, then you should have nulled out what you just added to the pizzas added list, right?
I would think so. I'm guessing that's not what actually is happening here, because I'll bet this code works. But and somehow I got an extra curly bracket in here. That's probably a problem. This isn't right.
Yeah.
That goes there. And let's see. That's there. That's there. That's there. I think I just need to get rid of one. Not sure how that happened. All right. So let's finish this up and see what happens. Run the app, verify the dialog now disappears when the order button is clicked. We can't see the order that we placed, but it should be there.
Put a breakpoint on that.
On the null thing? I didn't debug. Let's test it first.
Oh, you can anyway because you're running client side right now.
All right, well, order does hide the thing, so that part worked. Cool. Yeah, we'll test that out soon. What was the other thing we were going to test? Whether or not bind or inject.
Add inject needed to be at the top.
Let's throw that down here under some markup. If that works, then that'll be interesting. I still wouldn't put it there because I think at inject really belongs at the top, but
Sure,
see if
I agree.
it blows up.
But I think it should work.
Nothing seems broken, so all right. I stand corrected. Apparently, it can go elsewhere.
Well, that's because of the new Razor is a little bit different parser, I believe. So there's
Than
just
traditional
like that.
Razor. Yeah.
Yeah, just like that at code is an at sign as well at the bottom, right?
Right.
So
I know it used to be that those at directives back before core. This was back in like MVC3. They always had to be at the top.
top first thing.
Yeah, but I guess now they could be somewhere else. So I'm totally going to hide all my at injects down at the very bottom of my file so that nobody will know.
Just to screw with
Just to
people.
mess with people. All right. I'm pretty sure at page still has to be first, though. I bet if you do that somewhere else, then that's... I don't think it's going to like that. I know Razor Pages requires it first. I've run into that many times before. Let's find out what happens with that. Frank, how's it going? You were just looking at this the other day. Wow, page still rendered. They got rid of that requirement. Interesting.
Well, I think it's all because they're generating that C# class. You can actually see that. I should be able to tell you how, but I forget. The g.cs, the generated class that gets produced from the file.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't think they care.
But I know when Razor Pages first shipped, it was required that page be at the top. Maybe they've this is separate from Razor Pages potentially, maybe, or sorry, separate from Blazor. But the server-side Razor Pages that you can add to any ASP.NET Core app, this had to be at the top. I don't know if that's
And
still the case now. Now I'm wondering if that's changed.
I was gonna say I don't think that's the case on those anymore either, but
Okay.
I wouldn't bet my life on it.
Right. And if it's not there and if it's not in the right place, it blows up. So like it fails fast. You'll know if you screw it up. But it looks like they're allowing you to put it anywhere now, which is interesting. I'm not sure I like that. I kind of like that these things should be right here at the top. And I would rather the compiler enforce that than let developers put them wherever the heck they want.
Well, it should be just another .editor config option.
Sure. There you go. All right. So run the app, verify, did that. Okay. Now we need to display, calculate the price, provide a way to place the order. So we're going to create a new component, configure pizza item, for displaying a configured pizza. And it will take in 2 parameters, and we'll copy paste some code. So that should go under shared again because it's a component. And we're going to add a new item, call it a razor view, doesn't really matter. We're going to do that dot razor. And then we're going to go over here, we're going to copy this and paste it over everything. Alright, and this is going to have a link to remove the item with an X. Tell me what the pizza size and name is, list the toppings, and then show me the price. Alright, sounds good. Add the following markup to the index component just below the main div to add a left side panel for displaying the configured pizzas in the current order. Just below the main div on index. Okay, here's index, main div, just below, right there. Bam. So this is a class sidebar. It's going to show.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of CSS to.
Right.
It's custom CSS on that.
Yeah. So here's my order. Here's each pizza in my order. Here's a link to remove it, which I don't have yet, so it's got a red squiggle. And here's one to place it, which I don't have yet, so it's got a red squiggle. So
see if your control dot will generate the functions from inside the Razor Pages. I don't think it will.
control dot does nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no light bulb. I'm getting the error pop up there. You can see, but the light bulb's not showing up to do any kind of quick fix or anything.
Yeah.
All right, I'll add the following event handlers to do those 2 things. These can just go in my @code block. We'll throw them at the bottom. Format. And this just says remove the pizza, and this just says post to orders the order, and then reset the order to a new order, I guess. Alright, what order is that passing? Well, that's going to be the... I don't know. Where's the order being set? I guess it's the order property that's right there. Okay, there we go. So it starts out new, then we're adding to it, and we place it.
Oh, Steve, we failed our C# question, right? With the null. You set the other reference to null. It doesn't mean you're going to set we didn't null out the object. Right, so when you added it.
I knew that we were failing at C# when I was asking the question, but I wanted to see why.
We just set the reference. They just set that reference to null. It doesn't mean you're going to change. You didn't kill the object, right? You just set your reference to null. So you added the object to the list, and then we set the reference to the object that we had to null, but not.
I got you. We changed where our pointer was pointing, but we didn't nuke the memory location.
Yeah, we didn't nuke the. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We didn't null out the item.
Right. All right. Why is this giving me a problem? Can I convert lambda expression? It's not a delegate type. Remove configured pizza. Did the name change? Let's remove configured pizza. Pizza. Does it need to be different somehow? On remove.
Save it, build it, see if it actually.
See if it's really a problem. Maybe it's a tooling error. You've already added the pizza to the order. Your pizza is temporary new one you configure each time. Right. You got that far in my thinking. Okay. Cool. This still built, and they said it would be on the left, but there's my sidebar on the right, so they don't know left from right. Order. Boom. Look at that. There's my order on the right. And let's make a ginormous baconatorizer. Cool. And
did they say on the left?
Pretty sure. Be another pull request.
Yeah.
Let's see. to add a left side pane for displaying the configured pizza. Alright, who wants to do the pull request on this thing? You can be famous. You can have your GitHub username attached to this page, side by side in the big lights, along with the likes of Dan Roth and
I should
Steve
be on there
Sanderson.
somewhere.
You're not, man. Marcelo and Ryan and Ed Charbonneau. Ed Charbonneau's on there. Look, you could be famous like these people if you just go find where it said left side and make it say right side.
What do you got to get to do? I've got contributions to this repo.
Well, no, it's for this. It's this exact file.
Oh, that's that
had to touch
page.
this
I
file.
haven't touched that page. Yeah.
Not the repo.
I'm
You'll
not
be on.
that
You'll be on the
famous.
repo too. No, if you do this one, you'll be on the repo. So there you go. Go search for left and make that right, and you can be famous. Not you, Kramer, because you've already done it.
I already done one. Yeah, I'm in there.
Joe's gonna do it. We'll see who's first. Suddenly there'll be 10 pull requests fixing this all at once.
They're gonna be Dan's gonna be like, what the heck?
All right, where were we? So we did that. Create the new order, right? You should now be able to add and remove pizzas. Oh, I didn't try removing. Let's try removing. Boom, boom. Look at that.
That's actually pretty nice.
So good.
That's actually quite nice.
Order worked.
Did our order button?
It nuked
did
it. I don't remember wiring that up, but I guess
I remember wiring up the button. Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think you.
it's doing set it to new order thing. That's this right here.
Oh,
It's
the place order. We hooked.
Yeah. So I don't know where it's posting this to. I guess it's posting it to my local API that I haven't done anything with yet. This orders
No,
controller.
that they pretty much pre-built for you here.
Yeah. So it is making a post here for me, and I haven't done anything with it yet.
Yeah,
Right,
and
so-
all of the shared stuff. So this is an interesting point on Blazor. So the shared stuff is effectively your DTOs that would come out of your server. That instead, so in JavaScript you would have or if you were using TypeScript, you would define all of those things again. So you'd have them in C# and you'd have them in TypeScript. Here you can just share the same object back and forth, which is quite nice. You could also, if you had the request objects in there, I think all of these. I don't see any request objects in theirs, but if you had request objects, you could put validation, which is what I do as well. I put my validation right in the shared as well, so you could validate the same. The request object on the server is going to be the one that gets sent from the client. I can use the exact same validation on the client as well, so that's pretty cool.
You could validate that this pizza list is not empty for the order to be valid, for instance.
Right. No need to send it to my server if he already knows it's invalid, right?
Right. All right, so that step 2 is done, I think. So there's nothing in the UI that indicates this happened. We'll address that in the next session. Show order status. All right, moving right along. Your customers can order pizzas, but they have no way to see the status of their orders. We're going to implement a My Orders page. So we're going to add a navigation link to the layout, main layout.razor, add a plain A tag that links to My Orders, leaving existing content in place, and it's going to have a bike image, apparently, because they deliver them with bicycles.
In the UK, I guess. In Thailand, that's what we would do. It would be scooters, baby.
Yeah. So I guess
I've got over
there.
10,000 miles on my scooter. That's a lot of miles.
Notice that the URL we're linking to, this URL, My Orders, does not start with a slash. If you linked it to my orders, it would appear to work, but if you ever wanted to deploy the app to a non-root URL, it would break. Base href /tag in index.html specifies the prefix. There we go. So if we ever wanted to put this thing inside of a subfolder, it would break if we were starting it with a slash, so we're using relative links. If you run the app now, we should have that thing. Alright. Let's try it.
Whoa, there you go, button. Nice little CSS effects.
This shows it's not strictly necessary to use navlink. We'll see the reason why we want to use navlink in a minute. Alright, so now we're going to add a My Orders page. If you click My Orders, you'll end up on a page that says Page Not Found. Whoa, they're right. Alright, obviously this is because you haven't yet added anything that matches the URL My Orders, but if you're watching really carefully, you might notice that on this occasion, it's not just doing a client-side nav, but is instead doing a full-page reload. what really happened is you click on that link. Blazor tries to see if this matches a client-side component based on app page directive attributes. Did not find one, so it does a full load nav just in case the URL is coming from the server. However, the server doesn't have anything either, so it falls back on rendering the client-side Blazor application. And this time around, Blazor says, okay, let's do a not found thing. That's weird. I'm surprised it doesn't just do a server-side not found. Well, I didn't have any state, but like, you mean if I'd added something to my order? So if we do this, we add it to the order, and then we go over here and say, poof, not there. Then we hit back, poof, my state is gone. That's not ideal.
Yeah.
If only there were like a Blazor state thing that we could use for that.
Yeah, well, here you'd still be screwed up because you went to the server and back and did a whole refresh. Unless you turn on.
Are you not storing in local storage?
Local storage.
Yeah.
It's a feature that's been requested. It's not that hard to implement, but I haven't done it yet.
You need the community to give it to you as a pull request. Treadmill, standing desk, or dancing queen. Yeah, I'm on a treadmill desk, so it's a treadmill standing desk. Comp Geek 78. So yeah, that's why I've got the, I'm moving. All right. So let's create this new page, myorders.razor, and have it look like this. Boom. And that's not going to be in shared because it's a page. So we're going to go here. We're going to add a. Can we do this? I don't know. Let's try it. Nope.
I put the link.
Can't do that.
I put the link in the chat there to Mad's.
Oh.
To Mad's
the marketplace
extension.
Thing.
Yeah, I put it in there just so for other people don't torture themselves with this technique.
And they also say here they want this to be it is capitalized. All right. So good. That was going to bother me. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to use Pascal case.
Okay, and then there, but not for the routes, of course. So there we go. My orders will go there. Boom.
I think you could change those routes as well. It wouldn't matter.
Well, this route's the convention anyway. They're specifying, but they shouldn't need to. My orders will go here. Boom. All right.
I'm saying you can make that uppercase M and an O
on this
in the page. It's not going to matter.
Okay.
I think it will actually reflect that uppercase M and an O in the URL if you do. But I'm just saying because it's running in WebAssembly, it wouldn't matter even if you're on a Linux box or whatever, because some of the web servers, right, are case sensitive and some aren't. I think it's retarded that any of them are case sensitive, but on a URL.
On the Linux URLs, they are.
Some of them are, right? Oh, it did lower it for you.
Well, I think it's pulling that from here. No, where's my layout? Here. I told it the URL. Where is it? There. Right. So if I said this was my orders.
Yeah.
That's what I would need to do to make it capital, I think.
Which we're going to have. I don't think they don't exist yet. We're going to have factories methods eventually, so that you could actually, instead of putting magic strings in your code, you'd be able to use the factory right there. So your href could actually link. You could actually reference a factory method in there. So it worked just fine with Pascal case as well, right?
Yep. And I'm guessing it'd work fine if this was lowercase and the other one was Pascal case. I didn't try that option, but let's just keep trucking through the steps. There we go.
Yeah, this is a pretty good presentation, that's for sure.
All right. Also notice this time no page load occurs. It just did it right inside the browser, right? Because the URL matched within the client-side SPA. Navigation was instantaneous. Cool.
Plus, you didn't lose any state.
Well, yeah, there's that. Plus, I did not break my app. All right. Highlighting the nav position. Look closely at the top bar. Notice that when you're on My Orders, it isn't highlighted in yellow. How can we highlight links when the user is on them? By using navlink.
Navlink.
Hey.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we have this thing called navlink. Let's go here. Let's replace... Not that. Let's replace this with this. Save it. Run it.
And now it'll look prettier.
Boom. Boom. Yeah. It's subtle. Like the text turns yellow, but it's there. You can see it.
You can definitely tell which one's selected.
There we go. All right. Let's go back here. Now you'll see it's correctly highlighted. Yes, did that. Now let's display a list of orders. Switch back to the myOrders component code. We're going to inject HTTP client, and we're going to grab data from the back end. And we're going to add all this stuff under the app page directive line. So myOrders.razor needs to inject the thing. Then it needs some function code, which we're going to say is at code instead, because we like that better.
It does make more sense because it doesn't. Properties are in there, and so are.
Right, it's not just functions.
They're not just functions, yeah.
Let's make the UI display a different output in 3 cases. If we're waiting for data, if we don't have any orders, or if we have some orders. Simple to express this using if-else blocks. Alright, look at this. You're going to let me copy the whole thing. Cool. So, Control-A, Control-V. There's all the things. And let's see what this is doing. This says, if we have no orders, status, then load. Otherwise, if we have 0 of them, say nothing was placed. Otherwise, to do.
And it changed your functions back
Yeah,
from at code.
Yeah,
I need to go through and do a pull request on all of those to change it to at code now.
Right. Alright, what's a text element? Why are we asking about text elements? Oh, because it's up here. Text loading. Okay. Text is not an HTML component, nor is not an HTML element or a component. Once the myOrders component is compiled, the text tag won't exist in the result at all. It's a special signal to the Razor compiler that you want to treat its content as markup string and not as C# source code. It's only used on rare occasions where the syntax would otherwise be ambiguous. So, is it the same as raw? Like HTML.raw? No, not really.
No. It's just telling, am I in C# code or am I not? So you put the text in there to say this is not C# code, this is markup.
Okay. Hey, CompGeek78, thanks for the subscription.
If you took it out, it wouldn't compile.
Right, because it would think this
Right.
must be C# code, and it would say, what the heck is that? Right?
Yeah,
Maybe?
I think that's what would happen. Right.
Right, okay, build errors, doesn't know what loading is. That makes sense. Alright. So, Razor's not smart enough to know, and that's because Razor is designed to work with HTML, and we don't have any HTML starting characters here. Like if I said this was bold, or that's
Or span,
like strong or span, then it would work fine. So text is just like how to do that, but without actually having to put in an actual HTML thing. All right.
So that should compile right there. Yeah, that should have compiled fine.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have. All right. Okay, what's with href? Ahref empty. Surprises you, remember the browser will prefix it with the href of /, so the empty string is the correct way to link to the client app's root URL. Where are we doing that? I don't see where we even did that. But, oh, it's here. Okay.
There it is, yeah.
Order some pizza will jump us back to the root. I need some form of a tag as a context switch, and text is what they chose. Sure. Yeah. Because it's not an HTML element, they know they can just strip it away. Alright, so how does this render? Async flow we've implemented above means the command will render twice, once before the data has loaded, and then once afterward, displaying one of the other 2 outputs. How can I reset the database? If you want to reset the database to see the no orders case, simply delete pizza.db on the server and reload your page. Render the grid of orders. Yeah. So no orders placed. Let's see. I'm not going to see that. I'm going to see this to do because I have placed some orders. So let's test it real quick. Go here, click on my orders, to do show order. Sorry, now let's go out to the server. And here's the server. There's my pizza DB. Delete it. Boom, now we have no pizza DB. And theoretically, if we just hit this again, it will reload. And it has to regenerate the database, which might take a moment. And give us
I think
a bunch
they're
of
using.
errors.
Yeah, we just crashed it.
500 internal error. Maybe just nuking the database was not what they wanted me to do. They said to just delete the DB.
Yeah, let's see what they said.
Simply delete pizza.db. And reload the
Okay,
page.
so then
That did not work as well as they thought it would. We may have to
reload the
rebuild.
page with a Control F5 maybe,
Alright.
as opposed to I think you just switched pages, right?
Right. Let's rerun the thing from Visual Studio.
Yeah, that'll guarantee we
Control F5.
reloaded the page.
There we go. Orders. There we go. So that did it. Good enough. Alright. Now let's come back here and let's get our grid going. Replace the to-do with this nice div that for each is over our orders. I don't have any orders because I just deleted them all, but
Right. So now we got to place some orders to see it work.
yeah, it's alright. Alright, so what are we doing here? We have a div. We're going to for each over orders with status. Orders with status is the thing that we're fetching from orders over the API with the HTTP client. And then we're going to just display information about it. Good, good. Run that. Please zoom in. Where am I zooming in? I got the font pretty big. Tell me more, Meherjand. What are you not able to see? There, there. Place an order. Place it. Boom. Go to my orders. Look at that. There's an order status preparing. Track it. Track it doesn't do anything yet. Page not found.
Not yet.
Alright. So there's that. How's that? That's probably better. I guess at some point I zoomed out because it wasn't 100%, so that must be what Meher was asking for. This should be better to see. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, close this and come back here. And it looks like a lot of code, nothing special here. It's a for each, right? We talked about that. Here's what we see. Adding an order details display. If you click on the track button, the browser will try to navigate to my order/ID, and you'll get page not found. We'll add a component to handle this. Go to pages, add order details.razor with this simple little bit of code here. So let's do that. Come back to the client, come back to pages, add a new Razor view called order details.razor. There it is. Come back over here and start it off with this code here. Come on. And Control A, Control V, Control S. Run it. And that alone should be enough for us to see their to-do stuff. So we can go here, we can track it, and show details for order 1. Perfect.
But you see that you bound, what they show you there is they bound that ID from the URL into that parameter.
Right.
If you go back and look at that source code.
Alright, so there's our at order ID, which we pulled in from this route right there.
Right. Right.
And then this parameter. And this could be code, because that's how we like it. Although I'm sure
And that's
I'm gonna
when you
copy
paste
paste
again,
over
it'll
it.
be gone.
Yeah, yeah. We know that's coming. Alright. If you're wondering how routing works, when the app first starts up, it tells the framework to render the app into a component. The app component in app Razor contains a router. The router is built in, interacts with the client, registers navigation events. Whenever the user clicks a link, when the user clicks a link, the router checks the URL. If it's in the same SPA, then it'll match it up with some internal page. Otherwise, it'll do a traditional full-page server-side render. If it's in the SPA, the router handles it. The router handles it by looking for a compatible app page URL. And then each parameter token needs to have a value, and the value has to be compatible with any constraints like :int. So this one, for instance, has a constraint of :int. So if I try to do my orders /foo and pass it a string, then it would not match this route. And
Right.
get some kind of a not found. If there's a matching component, router will render. If there's no matching, it will try and do a full page load. And in this case, it would not find it, and it would do a not found, which is what this says. Alright, so polling for user details. Order details logic will be different from my orders because we don't just want to fetch the data once, we want to actually see what the current status is of the order. And every few seconds, we're going to check the server to see how it's going. This will make it possible to show the order status in nearly real time, and later to display the delivery driver's location on a moving map. I don't think the map will be moving. I think the location will be moving on the map. What's more,
It would be
we'll also
nice if they
account.
updated this to a signal R to push that information back as opposed to the polling.
That's true. That seems like an obvious enhancement, right? Because like this whole "we'll pull the server every few seconds" thing sounds very old school. Like that's how we did it in the '90s.
Well, and we use SignalR already. I mean, the whole server side rendering is done through SignalR, and there's been a significant amount of work so that you can actually have like two hubs, basically one for your app and then one for Blazor, right? Configured. I haven't tested it yet, but that would be interesting to change this to SignalR. Maybe they do in a later version. I don't think so.
Alright, so now we're going to start using threading, so we can do stuff with that for the polling. And we're going to also inject in the HTTP client, so we'll add those things. Plus recognize using is from the equivalent .cs files. Yep. Unfortunately, Visual Studio does not yet add these automatically, so you have to do it yourself. You can't just control dot and add them. But now we can implement polling, so update the functions block like this. I'm not going to copy the functions block because I want it to be in that code block. We'll take everything else from inside of it and have it look like this. So let's look at this code. Alright, order status.
So there you see some
order,
lifecycle
polling.
events.
On parameter set, if we're already polling for a different order, stop polling. Alright, so this will call cancel. Otherwise, start a new poll. Poll for updates is going to use a cancellation token source, and while it's not cancellation requested, it's going to keep trying, and it will await a call to /orders order ID and set that to the order with status. And if it gets an exception, it will say it's invalid and cancel polling. And then it will say the state has changed, and it'll wait for 4,000 milliseconds, 4 seconds.
So line 42 there, that's the first we've seen of state has changed. That is because, again, when we were talking about before, there's no user event to trigger them to look for state changes, right?
And this
so
is
if
what
you
will
get
trigger,
some response back.
This is what will trigger
that'll-
the re-render of the page.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just basically telling them, yep, something changed, you need to go ahead and do your business. I think it should be a public method, but it's not.
Alright, because you'd like to be able to call it from other things.
Yeah, I have to expose it myself through inheritance, and I don't know why. Well, for example, if you're using dependency injection, they're saying it breaks encapsulation. I argue that encapsulation is already broken. If I'm using dependency injection that injects my state, well, then the outside guy is the one telling you what your state is. So state has changed should also be available to public. I don't think it breaks encapsulation at all, but
Or at least there should be some way for you to inject something that can trigger that. Even if it's their thing, like they don't have to make that public, but they could make something that you can inject
yeah.
public that then can reference it.
I mean, encapsulation would imply that all state is owned by that component, and that's not the case.
Alright, so if somebody wants another pull request, on this one there's a typo. So go out to this page, and then do a search for this use on parameter set, right? And change it to say this uses, and boom, you'll be famous and a contributor to this repo, because that should be uses. Alright, so it uses on parameter set instead of on init, on async. On parameter set is another component lifecycle method. It fires when the component is first instantiated and anytime its parameters change value. If the user clicks a link directly from one order to another, the framework will retain the order details instance and just update the order ID parameter in place. We haven't provided any links from one myOrder screen to another, so the scenario didn't occur yet, but it's still a good idea to use this thing in case we change navigation rules later. We're using an async void method to represent polling. This will run arbitrarily long even while other methods run. Async void methods have no way to report exceptions upstream, so we have to do a try catch inside of it to make sure we do whatever we need to when exceptions happen. We're using a cancellation token source. We already looked at that. That's to trigger when polling should stop, like if we get an exception or we're hitting an invalid ID. And then we need to call state has changed, which we were just talking about. It tells Blazor the component data changed. The framework will re-render the component. There's no other way that the framework could know to re-render your component, and so that's why we need to call this thing, which maybe needs to be public. Alright, so we're getting the order details. We're even pulling and updating that data, but we're still not rendering it, so let's update our div class equals main to have all the order details in it. And this is in the my order page, or order details page. So that goes here. What did I just copy? The whole div.
All of it.
So there we go. Bam. What's this going to do? If it's an invalid order, we're going to say, sorry, can't load it. Otherwise, we'll show a loading screen when it's null. And then once we've got it, we'll display the details of it. To do, show more details. Alright. Alright, that's going to show that. So this accounts for 3 main states, which I just showed. And then we'll do the more details. Let's just jump to doing that. So, no, it's not. That wants a new file. So let's test it before we get to the next step.
We haven't done any commits, by the way. I don't know what repo. Maybe you're working right out of their repo. I don't know.
I did a clone of it, so I can make commits to my local, but then I don't have a fork to push them to, and I don't have commit rights on this repo, so I wouldn't be able to push up to theirs. So I'd have to create my own repo and push to it to do anything.
Yeah, no biggie.
CompGeek78 created a PR. Good job. All right, so what are we trying to do here? I'm going to say order, place the order, go to my orders, track the order, to do show more details. All right. Great. Last bit of UI is the actual contents of the order. We're going to create another component called orderreview.razor and put it in shared. So let's go here. Let's go here. Let's add new item, razor view, give it a name, order review, add it, come back, steal some code, like that, render its content as follows, and go away, Control V, give it a code, like that. Alright, what is this going to do? For every pizza in the order, show the pizza size, name, price, and toppings. Show the total price, and we're going to have a parameter of the order. So this thing doesn't know how to get the order. It has the order given to it by its parent page. Right? Because the page that's loading this already has the order, so there's no reason for this to go fetch it.
Well, right, or pull it from any place that it could know. Again, because basically their index page maintains all of their state for this guy, and
Right.
it passes that information around.
Alright, now back in here, we're going to replace our to-do with an actual call to the order review component, and that goes in the order details.razor. So, where is that? Right here?
Yeah.
Alright.
It's also nice how, he just created a new component for that instead of, you could have put that code
Right, we
inside
could have put
there.
it all in here, but then it would get uglier and uglier.
Yeah, so you can clean things up.
Don't forget to add the extra div. Okay, I did forget to add
We
it.
might have.
I totally forgot to add it. I didn't forget, I just didn't do it because you didn't tell me to do it. But now that you told me to do it, I'll do it. Alright. Replace, look, you said replace text this. You didn't say replace with this. I don't know. It was not clear, but this note helped, so we're good. Alright, now, theoretically, everything works up to this point. Here we go. And I can go to my orders, and I can track the order, and I can see there's my order. Look at that. And it's got stuff. And if we do a more complicated order with some items on it, and whatnot, we order that, and we even add 2 pizzas, we order that, and we order that, then our most recent order here, I think, oh, it's gotta be this one. So the most recent one's on top, and look at that. All the
That's pretty
things.
nice. And look at the speed that the thing runs. Once it's up and running, once the mono-WASM has been loaded, this thing's pretty daggone snappy.
It is, although I'm not super impressed by that because it is running locally. So, like, ASP Web Forms runs really fast locally.
Well, but it's going to be running locally anyway, right? Because
that's what I'm
this
saying.
is all running in the
Right.
browser.
It's all running. It's my browser on my machine with my server with my database on. There's nothing going really over the wire here. So.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if it was published, right, then the HTTP request to pull that information would be the slow part, right? But all the other stuff is going to be running in your browser anyway after the initial load. But the pain point is the initial load, and they know that as well. The mono DLL or the mono load is the one that takes the most time. Of course, it's going to be cached, but so it's only the first time around. And we do have server-side rendering as well, so that helps.
Right. And then what this is actually doing on the back end, which we haven't really looked at, is changing the status over time. So It starts out as preparing, which we've seen. If we go back to my orders, you see all of them are now delivered. But when I first place an order, it will say, boom, boom. Hey, Joe LaRue is now following. Thanks, Joe. Here, it's preparing, and I don't actually know how to... Is it doing the polling? It is doing the polling now, right?
It's doing the polling. Yeah, you
So
added that
if I don't touch anything, it should change, right?
It'll change on its own. If you just sat there, and it obviously was pretty quick because it went from preparing to delivered in a few seconds.
They were saying 15 seconds, I think.
Yeah. Now it's interesting though the way that they're doing that polling, because it's taking because the client side is single threaded. It's only running WASM is only running a single thread.
Right.
But because of async await, just basically says go away and keep doing other things, come back. It sets up its own callback. It still works perfectly fine in single threaded. It gives you the feeling that you like spawned off this thread to sit there and wait, but you really didn't. But
right, that's true. That is nice, and you don't have to deal with dealing with the main UI thread or anything like that.
Right. It just works simply. Yeah, this should be going out. There goes something.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing the status change for some reason, but it is polling. And this is supposed to happen about every 4 seconds.
State has changed. I don't know how fast the. Well, I guess
1,
you
2,
could.
3,
You
4.
could.
It's like it's not doing this one though. Like it's only fetching 2 and 3, ID 2 and ID 3, whereas this is ID 4. So for some reason it's not polling on the one that would actually change. I don't know why. Like why isn't it checking 1 through 4?
Let's look at the poll code.
Yeah,
again.
so this thing changed to delivered a while ago.
There.
Right. I just had to toggle it. Right. I'm sure it changed a long time ago.
That's a failure then on our state has changed, because state has changed is exactly that's what that's for.
Well, it never
right?
It changed on the server, right? But it never fetched it, right? We can see here it's never looking for 4. So that's the thing. It's our,
that's right.
It never fetched 4. So let's look at our polling, like you said. So here's order details. Here's our poll, and we're looking for order ID. But which order ID are we looking for? That's only on order details that it's doing the polling. Oh, that's why. I have to open it. I have to open order details. All right, let's try this. All right, we're gonna come in here. We're gonna place a new order. Order that one. Order it. Go to my orders. This is not doing it, but this one is.
This
so
one
once
is.
I come here, now it's gonna pull on 5, and the other one's still 2. So every one that I've ever gone to this endpoint of is polling. That's what's going on here. So I had previously gone to 2 and 3, and you see now it's out for delivery.
Yeah.
And so they were still polling. And probably it could stop polling once it gets to delivered.
Yeah, once you're at the end status, we don't need to care anymore.
Now the question is, will that change here, like automatically? It should, right? Like without me touching it, once it goes to a delivered state.
I'm surprised that it's still polling, because that component is no longer in memory. When you close that page, that component's gone away. So
I don't know. They're all 3 of them doing it. 2, 3, and 5 are still tracking.
Yeah, they're still tracking.
Still out for delivery. All right. Still out for delivery.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's give it a second and see.
Oh, look at this now. It's got double 5s, right? Watch. Now it's delivered. I don't think it didn't update this page.
It didn't update the page. That's right, because like I said, it's out of memory.
He's noting.
I'll tell you.
The next thing is going to be to implement dispose, which is going to fix this
say,
problem.
yeah.
But our problem right now is look at how many 5s are coming through.
This is the problem that I just fixed on mine. A guy did a pull request on Blazor State. He's like, "These things keep coming up." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I had to implement iDispose." I go, "If you pull down the latest version," he goes, "Oh yeah, I should have checked." Yeah, I fixed this as well.
So it says, if you deploy this right now, bad things will happen because this logic starts pulling and it never ends. And if the user navigated through hundreds of different orders, or even the same order hundreds of times, it'll create lots of different instances, and there'll be hundreds of polling processes left running, blah, blah, blah. All right, you can actually observe this by doing what we just did and repeat these steps, and you see it pulling a whole lot, which is bad. This is wasteful. We need to make order details stop. Oh, they didn't have this before? I guess.
Yeah, when I did it, they didn't have this.
Just maybe somebody pull requested this in. It's simply a matter of using iDisposable. So on order details.razor, we're going to add iDisposable. All right, let's do that. at the top, somewhere. I guess there. Okay, now if you try and compile, it's going to say it doesn't work because we didn't implement dispose. Okay, so let's implement dispose and cancel with the token. So anywhere down in here we can add the method. Now we can build, and it will build. Yes, yes. And the framework calls dispose automatically when it's torn down and removed from the UI. Once you put in this fix, you can do lots of polling processes. They will no longer keep running.
Right. That's pretty cool.
Alright, I'm going to trust that that works for now. We'll keep going. Automatically navigating to order details. Right now, once users place an order, the index component just resets its state, and their orders appear to vanish without a trace. This is not very reassuring. We know the order's in the database, but users don't know that. It'd be nice if we navigated them right to it. So to switch back to our index component code, okay, to do that, go to your index component code and add the URI helper to it. So let's go to index. Add this helper. We're going to inject it at the top. URI helper lets you interact with the URIs and your navigation state in your SPA. It has methods to get the current URL or navigate to a different one. So when we place order, we're going to use URI helper.navigate to that new place. So let's go find place order. Confirm, remove, place. Right
There it is.
And do that. And Control CD. And new order ID. We need to grab that. So previously we didn't care what the order ID was right here, but now we do. So we're going to take the result of this post, assign it to our new order ID, and then render redirect. All right, and that's not a server-side redirect, that's just all happening in the client. Now, as soon as the server accepts the order, the browser will switch and begin polling. Alright, so that should be a lot nicer. So let's try it out. Come in here. Add a thing, place an order, place the order, and look at that, we're tracking. And hit F12, check the network, it's checking number 6.
And there he is.
Preparing. Should be about 4 of these, because after 15 seconds, out for delivery.
And it's off delivery.
Nice. And then if I go off of this to anywhere else, we should stop seeing polling, because we disposed it.
Right.
And
right.
it's no longer polling. So good. And if we come in here and we track this one, it'll start polling on number 5 until we come back to my orders and we go to 6, and it'll start polling on number 6. So everything seems to work now.
Yes. Okay. Now that was important because of the polling, right? That you disposed, but realize that all those other components are really just setting inside of the garbage collector right now. Right? They get freed, but and there's nothing to dispose. But I'm just saying that they're sitting there in garbage collection. And I found that garbage collector on .NET leaves that stuff around forever.
Well, it leaves it around until it feels memory pressure, and then it does something. Because it's expensive to do garbage collection, so it doesn't do it unless it needs to.
Yeah, it's going to leave stuff there for quite some time. I was freeing up my resources off of garbage collection before this I dispose, and it was like they never get freed up. Stuff's going to be going on forever.
All right, so now we're on to number 4, refactoring state management. This will probably be the last one we get to because I'm going to be done in about 22 minutes.
Okay.
But we've made pretty good progress.
I'd say we're kicking it.
We got
following the scripts a whole lot faster than just winging it.
Stephen T. Kramer is one of the contributors to this one.
A typo or something.
He must know something about state management.
I doubt it.
All right. So in this section, we're going to revisit some code we've already written and make it nicer. We'll also talk about how eventing and events cause the UI to update. You might have noticed this, but our application has a bug. Since we're starting a list of pizzas in the current order on the index, the user state can be lost if the user leaves the index page. Add a pizza to your order, don't place the order, navigate to my orders and back, boom, it's gone. Right, we've seen that. Okay, we're going to fix this bug by introducing something we've dubbed the app state pattern. The basics are that you want to add an object to the DI container that you will use to coordinate state between related components. Because the app state object is managed by the DI container, it can outlive the components All right, it sits on top of all the individual UI elements, and it gives us better separation between components and business logic. All right. So we need to configure DI for this thing. So we're going to create a new class called order state in the client project root folder. We're going to register it as a scoped service in the DI container. In which project? Blazor application is a startup class. It must be in the client project also.
It's in the, yeah.
So over here, we're in, yeah, there's its startup. All right. So we're going to make a new class called, what do they want it to be called? Order state. All right, fine. Public class order state.
Gonna put it in the. They're gonna tell you to put it in the
No, they
startup.
said put it in the root, so I'm doing this because that's way faster than any other way to do it.
Oh, you're just using the.
I'm just
the
using
tool,
this, yeah, so I can say control.move and it'll move it.
Yeah, because you don't have that MADS
Right.
thing to add in.
Because I use that instead of Matt's thing, right?
Yeah, refactor. Yeah, we should have been doing that all along on the others.
I don't think it'll work on a .razor.
It probably would. Yeah, you did it with a CS, and then you'd have to change the name anyway.
Right, that'd be a pain. All right, so we're just going to add this here now, which should just work. All right, it doesn't actually do anything yet. All right, now the reason we chose scoped over singleton is for symmetry with a server-side component application. Singleton usually means for all users, where scoped means for the current unit of work. Or generally in ASP.NET Core, it means the current request. All right.
But that's important because if you did a singleton on the server, every user would see that same information. So you would see they would see the same order, right? Every guy on the planet's ordering the same pizza, right? So that's not good. But that's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah. So we could have used singleton here, and when it's running on the client, it would only show me my stuff because it's only my stuff running on my browser. But as soon as I would push it up and run it in the server, then it would be totally broken and it would share everybody's stuff.
Right. So the first three versions of Blazor, there was only client, there was no server, and then they realized how easy it was to do the server, and they added it, and then we all had to go switch these singletons to scoped.
So I saved myself that pain by waiting until now to play with it much. All right. Now the type is registered in DI, we can inject it using this. It doesn't actually have anything on it yet, but okay. So we're going to go to the index page, and we're going to jump to the top, and we're going to inject it right there.
Yeah.
Yay. Convenient method to both retrieve something from DI by type and define a property of that type. Right. Which is kind of like TypeScript. Right? TypeScript lets you do DI and define the thing right inside the constructor of classes, which is something I kind of wish C# had, so you don't have to constantly do the constructor and then immediately assign it to a field or a property.
Yeah, well, they have that. They have it. If you create the property first, you can generate the constructor at least. But
yeah,
with a lot of the control dots, but still, it seems like a lot of code for you type the same thing 3 times, right? Once in the parameter, once for the property, once for the assignment. It's
Control dot definitely makes it easier, but it's still like you still have to have that code, which is a little bit annoying.
So other thing about injection here, real quick, is that these are property injections. So they will happen after your constructor is already run.
Right.
So if you did something in your constructor, wouldn't be there, right? Yeah. Okay. Those wouldn't exist at that point. So that's why your lifecycle methods. So you basically use the on init async is something that runs after the constructor's done.
Okay, that's good to know.
So if you need to initialize something that's injected, then you have to do it there.
All right, so we're going to put our showing the dialog, configuring the pizza that we're configuring, and the current order all into our state. Now let's move some of the methods from index to order state. We won't move place order because that triggers navigation, so instead we'll just add a reset order method. All right, so we're going to take all these things and put them on the state class, because these are all ways to work with the state of the system.
So this should feel a little bit like DDD on the server side, saying, okay, now we're starting to move some of the business logic, kinda. It's not really, but kinda, to the class that's actually it's manipulating.
All right. So remember on the last one where we did the polling, and there was a comment in the markdown that said, "Hey, you've got to add this using statement because the tooling won't do it." The tooling does it now. All right. I'm adding this using statement for list right now with control dot. So Oh, but never mind. This is a regular class. Never mind. That's not a Razor file.
Yeah,
Sorry. Ignore me. Maybe the children's fixed, but all right.
that's why I use code
Remove.
behind.
Right, exactly. Remove the corresponding methods from index.razor. All right. So, what am I removing? Show, cancel, confirm, reset, remove. All right. Index.razor. On an async that stays. Show, cancel, those go away.
Right.
Confirm, remove, those go away. Place order stays.
Place order stays. Yeah.
Okay. And place order is going to change now to call reset, right? So here's the new place order is going to call reset instead of setting the order. All right. Now remember to
So
remove
they're using
methods.
dependency injection as their state management.
Order, configuring pizza, and the fields. So they're doing what? The DI for it? Yes.
Yeah, this is just one giant state management that gets injected.
All right. So these three things now live on the state, on order state. So I don't need to have them as parameters, or rather as local values, on this page.
Right. This is
Specials
much better
I still
than
want.
much better than passing things all down through parameters and so forth as well.
All right, but these all broke. So we're going to have to modify that, which it's going to tell us to do in a minute, hopefully. This
It doesn't.
is possible with the component by updating references to the various bits attached to order state. For example, the remaining place order method may look like this. Feel free to create convenience properties for things like order state.order. If it feels better to do that way, try this out and verify everything still works. You can now add some things. All right.
Okay, so
they
what's
didn't
not
tell me to
compiling?
fix these.
Well, they're all going to be in order state. I think that's what they're trying to tell you. So your order is now the order state.current order or whatever, and it tells you feel free to convey. It's probably quicker to just make a convenience method down there in the bottom that just says order is equal to order state.order or whatever the heck we named it.
I'm alright to just do this. It's more clear to me that that's what we're working with. Alright, that's good.
So at least the compiler would find them all.
Well, they're all red, so that part's easy.
Yep.
Alright, pizza equals configuring pizza. That's order state dot configuring pizza. Alright. And is that a thing? Yep. And that is a thing. So I think we're about done.
Yeah.
Let's try the compiler. So close. What? It worked. Alright, how about this one? Order state.order. Alright. Realized where I went wrong when I started from a copy of step 0. I missed the directory.build.props file. What is that? I don't see that. I haven't done anything with that. SMAB UK. What is that directory build props file? I don't see
Directory
that anywhere.
build props is going to be all of the versions that they have. You won't be able to see it from here, but if you switch to the folder view, you'll probably see it at the top of their repo.
No.
Up.
That.
Yeah.
Alright, what does that do?
That's a generic for your MS build projects. You can set a bunch of properties in there to tell you there.
Say which version they're on. Alright.
Yeah, and then they're going to use those as variables. If you go look someplace, they're going to have an ASP.NET Core version in the project. So this way, they only have to update it in one spot. It's a really nice feature. I use it as well.
Okay.
So if you have multiple projects that use the same thing, you can update them all in this one spot at the bottom, and the rest of them just reference these variables.
Nice. Alright, that's cool. And if you didn't have that, then you'd be in trouble. Because you'd be on the wrong version. Or an unspecified version.
Well, yeah, or you'd have like, well, you can kind of do it through NuGet Package Manager, say manage the versions for the whole solution, but this does it all in one spot.
Right. Alright, so verify it still works. So it built, so it must still work, right? If it compiles, it must work.
Ship it.
Yeah.
Wait, we can't take payments yet. We got to take payments, man. How are we going to make any money?
My orders, we're preparing, we're tracking, everything's great. It's beautiful.
It's actually pretty nice
What are the
for.
odds that it works? All right. So.
And their pizza photos are stock, but they're pretty good. They're pretty good pictures.
Yeah. In his demo, he's like, "Oh, it's the Brits. So we're gonna add some scones to it." Where's the scones? They were in his demo, but maybe they're not. Oh, there it is. Tea and crumpets. We can add tea and crumpets to our British pizza and freshly baked scones. There we go. That's a British
Well, I'm
pizza
sure
for you.
if we get the Brits on here, they'll tell us how we've misspelled all the words anyway. We should have been using S's everywhere. No Z's, of course.
Extra U's on things.
Yeah, an aluminium, right?
Right. Extra U's and extra syllables. All right. Explore state changes. Get option to explore state changes and rendering work in Blazor. See how event callback solves some common problems. Details what are happening now become more complicated now that order state is involved. All right. Event callback tells Blazor to dispatch the event notification to the component that defined the event handler. If the event handler is not defined by a component, in this case order state, then it will substitute the component that hooked up the event handler, in this case index. All right, where are we doing?
I didn't know it did that.
Yeah.
That's
So
yeah,
Blazor's smart enough to mess around with figuring out where these events are coming from. And that's because we're using event callback instead of using like a native event handler of some sort.
Yeah. That's
All
cool.
right, so what would Blazor state give us that app state, this DI app state pattern does not?
Well, you've got the pipeline with mediator for one, obvious off the top, right? So if you have any transactions that fail or any state that changes, we roll back to a known good state, as opposed to this would just be left you in whatever state you happen to be in, right? If you get an exception, what do? You don't make a copy of the previous state, so you don't know what the previous good state was, right? So you'd have to, but it's a very simple global state management, right? And I'm sure that's going to be probably the predominant version. Blazor state takes the mediator pattern and gives you a pipeline on the client. So it's almost identical to what, if you're using mediator on the server, you're going to understand that pattern.
Okay.
Extremely well, right? And it gives me the ability to plug in. So I can create a component with an event stream that says every time, that's one of the examples that I use on my page, that every time an event fires, I can update this state. And nobody knows that. I don't have to go to all those places, right, to where they were and say, oh, and by the way, fire this other thing or update this.
Right.
It's just because I plug in middleware into the pipeline that says, hey, everybody that comes by, I want to do this with, right? So mediator gives you a pipeline. And as you know, I'm in love with pipelines. I think that's a great pipelines with the command pattern and dependency injection is like the triple powerhouse there. Sliced bread. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We got a couple more minutes. Let's look at what the next step is, even if we won't necessarily get to it. All right. So if you take a look at the order class,
forms.
We want to add checkout. Notice it holds a delivery address property. Nothing populates that, so everything has a blank delivery address. It's time to fix this by adding a form on the checkout screen where you can enter a valid address. So I'm just going to skim through this, not actually do it yet. Maybe we'll start on step 5 next time I stream. So we're going to insert checkout into the flow.
So we're going to talk about forms, just the basic concept.
Yeah, they have binding, which is nice. Here's our delivery address form with an address editor component they're going to create. That's nice. We'll add some server-side validation, and that will be easy to do because we're going to use the same address type in both places, so we can specify all this stuff here in the shared model.
They're showing attribute validation in this case,
right.
But fluent validation and with the plugin validators works extremely well on this. So and
it'll run on client and server because C# everywhere. So that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nothing. I mean, the guy from the Fluent Validation people didn't do anything, right? You just
Right.
pulled in their library and it runs. So that's one of the benefits. People talking about Blazor being brand new, but in reality, the only thing that's brand new is the mono WASM running inside the browser. All of the components that we've been using for years are extremely mature. Just pull them in, and they also do IL stripping. So you pull in JavaScript, you're very concerned about the size of the packages that you bring in, right? And they try to do tree shaking, but it's really hard, well, because they don't actually compile, so they don't know what's used and what isn't used.
Right.
But with IL, they actually strip out. So if you use one constant out of this thing, then that's what we pull in. We don't take the whole DLL, right? So you can pull in a 12 gig DLL and use one constant out of it, and it pulls out that little tiny piece and sends it down the line for you. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we should look at what's actually happening here. If I do a control F5, in this case, it actually had stored a lot of these DLLs, so they're just getting 304s, saying not modified. But yeah.
But the size of them is nowhere near the size that they would be.
Well, yeah, that size is not accurate. Let me rebuild. But not
Control F5 should give you.
Well, Control F5 will bring up a new window, and it won't have the browser tools turned on. So let me just change anything. Come in here. And rebuild. There we go. So the server has been updated. Now if I do a control F5 here, it should reload. Yep, these are all 200s now, so it actually pulled them down. And our total that we downloaded was 5.5 meg, which is, not tiny, but not that huge. And obviously their goal is to make that smaller.
But the biggest piece of the whole thing is mono.
Is it?
The mono part is the biggest piece. The DLLs actually minify pretty well.
Yeah, okay. MonoWASM and is big. MS Core Lib is big. The built-in .NET stuff, System Core, those are System Text JSON. Those are the biggest ones. And between those, that's 2 meg right there, pretty much, right? Approximately.
Yeah. So,
maybe 1.8.
yeah. So mono's the biggest one. Now they're also going to add in AOT, which I can't even tell you what the acronym stands for, but it lets us be able to compile down to WASM, which makes it more performant, but also makes it bigger. Interestingly enough, IL is smaller. Well, it makes a lot of sense when you do the same. It does the same thing when you compile to machine-specific output.
Right.
Right now, the IL will actually expand when it grows. So it does the same thing when you do it to WebAssembly. But some of the performance tests that they've done, so if you have a tight loop that you're doing some crazy stuff with, they get raw speeds in the browser. So it's going to perform just like it's running on your desktop, right? Whereas the JavaScript's, well, what's going to happen? We all already know what's going to happen. JavaScript's going to allow the capability to compile to WebAssembly too, right? TypeScript surely is going to do it.
Right.
Why not?
Well, and they're talking about WebAssembly running on the server, right? Node.js is going to run WebAssembly. Is coming. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. What I'm waiting for is Web Container, where instead of dropping down DLLs, we'll just ship a Docker container and it'll run on the client in a container.
I think the browser itself is just going to become a Docker container. I mean, we've got basic pieces, right? Right now we're using HTML and CSS, but as we all know, there's better ways to build screens, right? So we're going to be able to plug in the rendering piece too, right? So we could replace all these little components, which is going to fracture the marketplace a little bit, but it's going to add a ton of competition and I think improvements.
Right. Well, and that's on the component side, one nice thing is that we'll have third-party components that can do UI stuff here that will have an actual business model. Whereas for the last few years, basically since MVC replaced web forms as the de facto way to build ASP.NET apps, component vendors have had a hard time because they basically can only ship JavaScript stuff with maybe some helpers in the MVC. And it's really hard to monetize JavaScript components because anybody can just include that .js file and have it. So now we're back to having compiled components that are licensed and installed on the server, and the Telerics and Infragistics and DevExpresses of the world can sell those again, like they could in the web forms days.
Right.
And developers can wire them up and have a nice, UI experience.
Yeah, and they already are. Teleric's got theirs. Well, actually, Telerik and DevExpress have
Right.
versions already.
Yeah, and I think
SyncFusion
SyncFusion's
is
the other one.
Yeah, SyncFusion has theirs. Theirs currently wrapped their JavaScript, and they use JavaScript interop, which was a quick way for them to put all their controls into Blazor. But they don't manage the render state and stuff like that. The state has changed and so forth. So there's some problems with the render tree with that. But my guess is that's just their first version to get it out quick, which I don't blame them, and then they'll come back and rewrite them in C#. I'm guessing.
Right.
But I know Telerik for sure, because I was on Ed's show and I've talked to Ed often, is all C# clean.
Right. Actual .NET components.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. And Ed's been a massive Blazor supporter. So.
All right. CompGeek was nice enough to tell us that AOT stood for ahead of time, which I think I knew at one point, but I'd forgotten that as well when you were saying it. So.
Yeah. Thanks.
And it is 2 o'clock. I should probably go get some actual paying work done. So thanks everybody that joined us live. I'll throw this up on YouTube after it renders to Twitch, and probably next week we'll pick up where we left off, and we'll start with this step 5 here of the workshop. I'll just keep on going with that. So the total number of steps is 9. So if we can do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe next time, we'll see how far we get. Usually with these kinds of things, they get more and more complicated as you go, so we'll see what that looks like. But I'll try and get through the next set next time I stream. So let's. Anybody have anybody that they think would be good for us to raid?
I don't know if Fritz was on already before you started.
Who is on? Quiet. Alright, let me see. Go to my channel. That's not it. That's not what I want. Go to my creator dashboard. That's it. There we go. And then who's around?
Oh. Where do you go to get that? Where do you go to see that? Who's on live?
Creator dashboard, and then if you have folks that you're auto-hosting or that auto-host you,
Yeah,
you can
I
see
do.
them here. And then whether or not they're on, like Clarkia is popping up as someone that's on, because I think either because I've rated him before or because like I don't even see him in here, so I'm not sure why he's popping up as the sort of default. Like if I say she sharp Fritz, like he doesn't even get any IntelliSense. I don't know why. So I usually end up because of the schedule, I usually end up rating Clarkia. But he started 90 minutes ago, yeah, and then usually he ends up ending right around where I rate him. He's got like half an hour left before he's done.
Yeah, but nobody else even shows up.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I don't know. Like Dev Chatter, like
Yep, he's
I
not
think
on.
they have to be live to show up, right? So
They do. They have to be live.
That's the thing. So let's send a raid to Clarkio, and no, that's not
Call
even
it.
working. Did he just go offline?
He just quit, probably. Yeah.
No. All right, let's go discover programming. See if anybody's doing any programming. They usually
299 viewers on that one. You want to raid those big ones because they actually you get to market yourself as well.
yeah, but I don't know if these people are doing
Valdez.
any .NET stuff. Like
No idea.
Visual Studio live yesterday. Science and technology. This will be too broad to be programming. There's somebody.
So can you search by the topic that they have? So can you put .NET?
Clarkia is live, showing him here.
Yeah, it is.
Let's try this again. Somehow I screwed up and it wouldn't let me raid him. There he is.
There, now it shows up.
Raid. Boom. All right, we're gonna do a raid to Clarkio again because he's the only person I know that streams at this time, and he's fun. Raid now with all 7 of us. Enjoy. All right, I'm gonna stop streaming.